Good afternoon. I know it's raining, but it's only gloomy outside. In here, we are all smiling faces, right? Yes. Well, welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I'm Teresa Holmes, club president. Thank you all for joining us. Today's meeting is sponsored by Valerie Rank of Habitat for Humanity and Sandy Geller of Robert W. Baird and Company. You may have met them both at the door, and our thanks to them for sponsoring today's music. Let's direct our attention to the opening music. Heidi Frankson will lead us in the singing of America the Beautiful with Casey Okers on the keyboard. And following our music, our guest will be introduced by Susan Drayson.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susie Drazen, and I'm honored to be able to introduce our guests to you today. Our guests, when I call your name, will you please rise at your place and remain standing so that we can introduce you as a group? George Austin, guest of Martha Vukulik Austin. Sarah Carizal, guest of Bill Zeineman. Kristen Dunst, guest of Bill Zeineman. Judy Karofsky, who's a former member, guest of Ann Cardinale. Jane Landretti, guest of Nan Zimdars. Gray Miller, guest of Rob Stroud and President Teresa Holmes. Roger Stauder, guest of Rob Stroud. Sherry Swakowski, guest of Charles McLymans. Brandon Wedig, guest of Susan Schmitz. And Charles Miadzi, guest of Wes Sparkman. Welcome.
Thank you, Susie. Well, in my Did You Know segment today, I wanted to talk about the Community Grants Program. So, did you know that our club has 4 priorities of giving that we ask members to contribute to? The 4 priorities of giving are currently shown on the screen, and you'll see that the Community Grants Campaign is the #1 priority. Jason Ilstrup this year chaired our campaign, and we did successfully meet our goal of $150,000 fundraising. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who participated. Now, did you know that 100% of the funds we raise each year are distributed in grants and are included in the Community Grants Program? So added to that amount distributed each year is 5% of a 3-year rolling average from our foundation's General Endowment Fund. Doug Dibman serves as this year's service team leader, and he is also past chair of the Community Grants Committee. And so the Community Grants Committee has 15 volunteers who evaluated a number of applications. There's handouts at your table today, and they made recommendations for grant funding for this year. Doug is now going to tell us more about this year's grant distribution.
Thank you. Nice to see all of you today. As President Teresa mentioned, I am Doug Dittman, our club's service team leader this year. And I am a very proud past chair of this Community Grants Committee. I'm filling in today for Jen Savino, who could not be here today, who is the current grants chair. Each year, our Madison Rotary Foundation provides grants from the proceeds of our annual community grants campaign, as well as the income from our invested funds. Our foundation currently has assets of over $16 million. This year, our committee received 74 applications requesting for over $750,000. Grants totaling $218,600 to 42 organizations were awarded this year. There is a handout at each of our tables that shows the detailed list of the grants. A few examples of what our foundation was able to fund this year include shelter and counseling for home teens, an after-school reading program, monthly food boxes delivered to older adults, and computers and a printer for families living in a homeless shelter. In addition, $23,683 was approved for our new international project in Uganda, which is working to stop human trafficking. We heard from Tammy Thayer about that a couple of weeks ago. Because of members' generous gifts to our Madison Rotary Foundation during our annual campaign, we are making a difference in the lives of children and families in our community. And I want to thank all who provided support to our Madison Rotary Foundation during our community grants campaign. It is because of you that we can provide these meaningful gifts to help our community be a better place to live for everyone. I also want the members to know that Jen Savino and a small ad hoc group is now working on a thorough review of our grants program. They are reviewing how we fund projects and the process our committee uses to evaluate projects. The group is working closely with our club board and our foundation trustees as a part of this review process. Soon, they will be seeking input from members as well, so you will be hearing more details soon about this. You will have plenty of time to comment and provide input before any changes would be made going forward. Thank you. Thank you again for your attention, and thank you for all your support of our community grants campaign. I hope all of you have a chance to serve on our community grants committee at some point during your membership. It's extremely gratifying. It is such a rewarding experience to see firsthand how our club is making a difference in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And Doug will be president of our Rotary Foundation next year. Secretary Dawn Krim, who's in the room today, is our current Rotary Foundation president. As I mentioned last week, we had a governance task force that held regular meetings since last fall. The task force reviewed the way we select club directors, succession planning for our club president, and whether club officers can vote at board meetings. Our club board approved the recommendations from the governance task force at their meeting in March, and on April 4th, they reviewed the club constitution and bylaws, drafted updates to reflect the task force recommendations. So changes to these governing documents actually require membership approval, your approval. So last week, our bylaws advisor, Virginia Bartelt, provided us with an overview of those changes, and she is back to provide them again because next week you will be voting. Virginia will now come up and give us an overview again.
Thank you, President Teresa. As Teresa mentioned, I serve as our club's bylaws advisor, and my goal today is to provide you with an overview of the recommended updates to our club's constitution and bylaws based on the work of the governance task force. So here's a listing of 7 items. If you were here last week, no brand new news. This is a repeat of the same. So the first item is we provided for electronic voting. The pandemic has been a challenge for us in many ways, including the ability for us to vote on important club matters when we don't have a quorum meeting in person. The second is to add a president-elect nominee who would be in line to be president-elect and then president. This adds one more year for a club leader to prepare for their role and gives our club more continuity. In addition, it would allow only for current board members to be eligible for these positions. Currently, directors-elect who are not serving on the board had been eligible as well. We're adding language to officially include an assistant treasurer. We've had that role filled, but now this makes it official and adds the role to our governing document. There are changes to clean up language on board meeting frequency. There's a historic reference to bi-monthly meetings, or semi-monthly meetings rather, but now the club meets monthly. And as you know, we had removed prepaid meals over a year ago, but our bylaws still reflect that a meal price is part of the dues structure. The new language will reflect that dues are no longer included in the, that dues no longer include the meal cost. There's an update to a section referencing finances so that it reflects the current way that checks are issued and how our club's annual financial reports are reviewed by an accountant. And finally, the board recommends approval of a change in our new member approval process. Currently, members are allowed 10 days to raise objections about any new member proposal. Rotary International removed this item from their standard club bylaws, and the revision would then remove this from our bylaws as well. There are packets at the back table that show all the draft edits to our Constitution and bylaws, and there's a link in the electronic document in last week's Friday email. There will be in this week's email as well. Please take time to review the red line draft, and we'll be calling for a membership vote on April 21 regarding the changes. The board had previously adopted an emergency resolution that allowed for electronic voting during the pandemic, and we'll be relying on that emergency resolution for this vote as well, because we still don't have a quorum meeting in person. If there are questions, feel free to contact me, the Rotary office, or any one of the club members, or I'm sorry, board members or officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Mark Clear serves as our meeting experience team leader, and he and his team have been reviewing the Q&A portion of our programs. And so he's going to now tell us about some updates to the section of our program.
Thank you, President Teresa. All of you know that our Rotary programs include, most of them include time for audience questions and answers after the program. Audience questions add value to our programs by prompting the speaker to fill in additional information, and they also help enhance the speaker's experience by demonstrating audience engagement. To ensure that our Q&A time is fair to all concerned, your meeting experience team has been working with the board to revise and enhance the club's Q&A guidelines and to ensure that we respect the four-way test at all times. At its April meeting, the board approved a new Q&A policy, which will be available on the website soon, and I wanted to summarize that for you a little bit today. We have created a four-way test for the Q&A, which Jane is going to put up now for you. This is not meant to be pejorative nor targeted at any specific members. However, you will, starting today, you will see this slide at the Q&A time during every program when time permits. So I know you are all excellent Rotarians and readers, so I won't go through this all, but I wanted to highlight the first guideline and talk about what constitutes a good question. So a good question prompts the speaker to add additional information which they may not have had time for in their presentation or perhaps didn't think about during their presentation. And it shows that interest on the part of our club. So it's not a story. It's not an anecdote from your own experience. The best way to share those would be after the program, if the speaker has time, to have a chat one-on-one with people. So I want to thank you in advance for, I want to make sure that I'm reading everything that I actually wrote here. So thank you in advance for respecting this four-way test regarding our Q&A. I will not be taking questions today, but you are certainly welcome to contact me or any member of the meeting experience team, to whoever booed, thank you, if you have questions or comments about this policy. And thank you all, Rotarians.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad I was not presenting that subject. All right, I have a few announcements today. A reminder that if you want to give to the Rotary International Foundation Ukraine humanitarian relief effort, we do have forms today at the back, on the back table. If you give now, it will count as your gift towards the annual Rotary International Foundation Fund. That campaign starts, that drive starts at the beginning of May. I also wanted to let members know that George Keene is recovering at home after being hospitalized last week. Cards can be sent to his home, and you can contact the office if you need his address or check online in the Rotary Members Only directory. We wish him a quick recovery and hope to see him back in Rotary in a few months. It's birthday time. We have birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor or wisdom that complements the Rotary mission. We also encourage members to make an age-appropriate gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation, rounded up to $100 for our club's Synergy Scholarship Fund. Rotarians, if you are in the room when I call your name, please stand. April 10th, past President Jim Ruley. April 10th, Frank Stein. April 10th, Marissa Young. April 12th, Ned Baxter. April 12th, Mike McKay. April 12th, Craig Weddle. April 13th, that's today, Ellen Foley. April 14th, Donna Beesman, who shares on my birthday and on every day. I'm grateful for Rotary's mission, its work, our club, and Rotary friendships. April 14th, Rebecca Paré. April 14th, Haley Salsa Miller. April 15th, Dean Nelson, who shares this quote by Andy Rooney: "I've learned that life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer it gets to the end, the faster it goes." And lastly, April 16th, Becky Steinhoff. Thanks to our celebrants for their contributions to the Madison Rotary Foundation. Please join me in wishing them a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. I have several members in the news to celebrate. Jess Cavazos was pictured and quoted in an article titled "Wisconsin Latino Chamber of Commerce Looks to Increase Rich Support More Business with New $3.4 million Grant." Juan Jose Lopez was also pictured in that article. Madison 365 on March 28th. Christy Goforth was interviewed on Wisconsin TV Channel 3 on April 12th about Free Bikes for Kids giveaway, which starts on April 30th. Chris Kolakowski, no fine for me today, has written a book titled Nations in the Balance: The India-Burma Campaigns, December 1943 through August 1944, which was published last month. Juan Jose Lopez was pictured in an article titled $25.5 million Black Business Hub to Offer a Path from Disparity to Prosperity. Wisconsin State Journal, April 9th. Kelly Rupo was pictured and quoted in an In Business magazine executive profile column titled Coming Full Circle. Kelly Rupo leads Ronald McDonald House Charities, April 22nd. It's coming. Jonathan Solari was quoted in an article titled Turning the Page with Turning Point. Madison Ballet begins a new stage. The Cap Times, March 30th. And Wes Sparkman and Charles Tubbs were pictured in an article titled We Found Our Vision. Federal funds support Center for Black Excellence, Centro Hispano, the Cap Times on March 30th. We celebrate our members in the news. Rotarians, great job. Now, on to today's program. We hold our monthly board meeting, and on this month, it was held on April 4th, and so I encourage members to review our board minutes that we post in the members login tab of our club's website. We want members to see our current board members in person, so we ask one board member to introduce a speaker each month. This month, board member Sandy Geller will make that introduction. Sandy is financial advisor with Robert W. Baird and Company. She has been a member of our club since 2013 and is a former member of the Madison Breakfast Rotary. She will now come forward and introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Teresa. Today's program is titled Monona Terrace, Building on a Dream. Monona Terrace Community and Convention Center first opened its doors for business in July of 1997, and our club was a sponsor of one of the opening events. Speaking to us will be KEN OPIN and Connie Thompson, who are going to tell us about the history of Monona Terrace, overview its current operations, and tell us about its importance to the Madison economy. KEN OPIN spearheaded the It's Right for Wisconsin Political Action Committee that helped garner the necessary public support to construct Monona Terrace. He was formerly a lobbyist for the Wisconsin Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO, retiring in 2001. Connie Thompson has worked at Monona Terrace for over 20 years in management roles prior to becoming executive director in 2020. We look forward to your presentation, Ken and Connie, and we've made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thanks for speaking to us today. I also wanted to mention we will have the infamous Q&A with our speakers if there's time, but please wait for the microphone if you have a question. Let's welcome them to the podium. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken Opin, and I'm going to speak first, and Connie will follow me. What I'm going to talk about is the campaign to pass the referendum that enabled the construction of Monona Terrace. For those of you who are younger, you may not realize that the original plan for Monona Terrace was not for a convention center. It was actually for a civic center. So I'll start by explaining how the concept was dreamed up that led to what we have today. Around the time of Paul Soglin inaugural as mayor in 1989, he was approached by 5 different people within 3 weeks, all to suggest the same idea: build a Frank Lloyd Wright designed convention center. 3 days after the inaugural, he and George Austin, who's here, met with Jim Carley and Bud Arnold. Those were the 4th and 5th people with the idea. But Bud Arnold was an engineer, and he was able to apply then current construction codes and building material requirements to prove that the original design for Monona Terrace would work as a convention center. These remarks, by the way, are an excerpt of a draft of Paul Soglin's memoir, which he allowed me to use. In early 1992, Mayor Soglin and his then aide, Roberta Gassman, asked me to head up an effort to win the referendum and build Monona Terrace. We came up with the idea of It's Right for Wisconsin, and very shortly, Mary Lou Muntz joined as co-chair of that committee. Those of you who knew Mary Lou knew how impressive a person she was. For those of you who don't remember her, she was one of the most influential legislators during that era. We created 2 committees, a political committee and a community outreach and action committee. The key people in the political committee were Morris Andrews, who really should be giving this presentation because he was the political genius behind the political campaign to win that referendum. But I also need to mention Bill Geist, who was with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and provided staff for us, and Don Helfrecht, who was then the head of MG&E, who provided meeting space, and Dick Zillman, who provided design services. The community outreach group, we had volunteers who attended community meetings. We staffed a table every weekend at the farmers market. We were sharing flyers and bumper stickers and selling mugs and T-shirts. And of course, being Madison, the opposition sprang into action, creating It Ain't Right. Some of you may remember It Ain't Right. The leaders of that group included an East Side alder named Bert Zipperer, a Dane County supervisor named Mary Sarah, a local attorney named Ann Fleischle, and a local political group, the Labor Farm Party. You can see this was a typical reaction at the time. Fleischle saying, clearly the public was missing crucial information. Zipperer was the parking was all wet. That was the reason a referendum was required. You know, we take it for granted, that we take Monona Terrace's success for granted, but you have to realize the time, it was a very close call, and we were not sure what the outcome was going to be. I've listed some of the arguments that the opponents raised. One was, we don't need a convention center. Things are fine. It'll reduce the quality of life. Libraries will close and park maintenance will be canceled. Law Park is the wrong place. The designs are fake. Nobody will come when it's cold. Lethal levels of carbon monoxide will accumulate in the tunnel. And my favorite, when the wind is from the south, bicyclists riding along the lakeside bike path will get splashed. You know, these were seriously raised issues that had a lot of support. Another of my favorites, it'll destroy fish habitat. And finally, the Wright design is an eyesore. Well, our core argument was we should build it because it'll create jobs, bring thousands of visitors who'll spend millions of dollars. It'll give us beautiful new park and public space, and an international reputation for building another Frank Lloyd Wright building, and it will unite the city and the lake. I think, on the whole, our arguments hold up a little better. The battle ran from late spring through the fall of 1992, culminating with the election on November 3rd. And there's a picture of a much younger me, Mayor Soglin and Dode Lau, who was one of our leaders. Dode was a charismatic labor leader who was very helpful in the campaign. And I got a quote from his wife, Gretchen. Dode thought it was wonderful that working people had the opportunity to enjoy a beautiful yet useful place to visit without an outrageous price to enter. Also on that day, Russ Feingold defeated Bob Caston for U.S. Senate, and Bill Clinton was elected president. But the key event that day was us. We won the referendum by less than 6,000 votes. Less than 6,000 votes. There's the election results. And based on that, the projection was that the center could open by May of '95. And thank you. And I'm going to turn the podium over to Connie for what happened after that.
So the group of people that you see on the screen are the Monona Terrace. Oh, okay. The group of people that you see on the screen are the Monona Terrace Commission that was formed in 1990. Speak up. Okay, I'll eat the microphone. All right. The group of people on the screen is the Monona Terrace Commission, appointed by Paul Soglin in 1990. This was a large representative group of citizens, independent thinkers, and with different agendas. They came from labor, business, all levels of government. And their mission was to oversee the design and financing needs of the Monona Terrace, Frank Lloyd Wright plans to build a convention center on Lake Monona. The committee was divided into two groups, the Finance Committee and the Planning Committee. And these 28 people, along with city staff, shepherded the project through to construction. Now I have a little video for you of Monona Terrace being built. The construction started in January of 1995. I don't know how many of you remember driving by as it was being constructed, but one memory I have is the pilings being driven into the ground. How loud that was, and it kind of felt like the ground was being shaken. But these memories are things that stand out to all of us, I'm sure. And in 2.5 short years, we opened July 18th of 1997. And as you know, it was no small feat in getting to that grand opening. My personal experience with that was I was hired 1 month before opening. I don't know if that was a punishment or or what, but I had 1 month to hire staff, train them, clean the building, and welcome, I think, pretty much everybody in Madison to the grand opening. So somehow we managed to pull that off, and it was an unforgettable experience, to say the least. This July marks our 25th anniversary of being open. Time flies when you're having fun, is what I think. And so we want to highlight a few of our events from the past 25 years in this next video. You might be wondering what we've been doing the past 25 years, but we've been working tirelessly to fulfill the 3 mandates that we were given when we were opened: to serve as a community gathering place, a tourism destination, and a catalyst for economic activity for the city, county, and state. One question that I have is, how many of you remember before Monona Terrace was built, what the downtown area looked like, and particularly Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard? Well, I'll tell you, another personal experience was when we first opened for that first year, finding a restaurant or food in the area. We had to walk all the way over to State Street to accomplish that. Now, there are so many choices that it's hard to decide some days where we want to go. But in the past 25 years, I'll share some interesting statistics with you about what we have been doing. So we have served 8.9 million visitors to the building. We have given 83,773 people tours. We have a 99% willingness to return rate from our events. And we have an impressive 98% customer satisfaction rating as well. We have held 2,002 free events, and we have hosted an additional 16,661 events. Our conferences and conventions have reserved an estimated 950,000 hotel room nights, and we have produced, just from those conventions and conferences, $697.5 million of economic impact. These numbers do not reflect the additional direct spending from other events, community gatherings, or from Monona Terrace and Monona Catering payroll and purchases. Of course, the last 2 years have been difficult and have taken a hit to our industry and slowed everything down. But we have not been standing still during this time. So staff during 2020 and 2021, when we were shut down or only allowed to have, like 6 people in the building or 10 people in the building, decided that it would be extremely important to make customers feel comfortable and to give them confidence when they returned. So we applied for and achieved STAR facility accreditation through the Global Biorisk Advisory Council in 2021, and then we were recertified or reaccredited in 2022. This is the gold standard for cleaning protocols, disinfection techniques, and infection disease prevention. And then another thing that you probably have heard before is that we've been a LEED certified building. That's been since 2007, when we were first certified at the silver level. Again in 2015, when we were certified at the gold level. And then last year, we were certified at the highest level, which is the LEED Platinum certification. All of these processes and applications are extremely difficult to attain, and we are very proud of our staff for having achieved it. Another thing that we kept busy doing was developing our virtual and hybrid capabilities. We have arguably the best audiovisual staff in the city, and we were uniquely positioned, I guess, to develop virtual and hybrid capabilities very quickly. And this was very helpful to our events that didn't want to postpone their event or not have it at all, so they relied on our abilities. We set up a virtual studio and with hybrid options, and we were able to host many of those events instead of being canceled. Similarly, our community events were reimagined. We looked at how we could engage the community by pivoting from in-person events to virtual offerings for meditation and yoga, Lakeside Kids, Moon Over Monona Terrace, Wright Design Series, and Maker Fair. We are now using what we learned during that period of time to advance future programming. So for instance, the Wright Design Series more than doubled its attendance by turning into a virtual event. We were able to not only draw local attendees, but also national and international audiences. So therefore, many of these programs will continue to offer that hybrid event option. And everybody is probably very familiar with our rooftop. And the rooftop became sort of an oasis for people during COVID, when people couldn't get out and couldn't go to meetings and meet inside. We realized just how important it was to the community to have that as be open and available to everybody. And then a strange thing happened. Everyone wanted to have their event on the rooftop. So, for example, DMI had their annual dinner up there, and then we also had our client appreciation event up there. And in both cases, they were very successful, and the attendees raved at what a beautiful setting that was for those events. So both of us plan to move forward with our events this year being on the rooftop. Let's hope the weather holds out. And then lastly, just a little bit of a forecast here. Forecasting for our industry is kind of a moving target at this point. Revenues are expected to recover significantly this year, although they will not be back to 2019 levels until arguably 2024. However, there is uncertainty with group travel and also traveler sentiment. The impact of COVID has kind of made everybody a little jittery, and it keeps everybody on edge. So while we're experiencing a lot of in-person events right now in conferences and conventions, it's not at 2019 level. But our the room tax is in a much better place than it was in 2020 and 21. Leisure travel has been the leader of that return. People coming to Madison and staying in hotels and visiting has helped that fund return to a better place. Our own forecasts are tenuous. We're eternally optimistic that we will follow the projections that the tourism industry has put out there and be back to 2019 levels around 2024. And lastly, I want to say that I look forward to seeing you at our 25th anniversary celebration on July 23rd. We wouldn't be here without your support and the entire community of Madison. So we thank you for that. And if you're interested in additional information, I believe there's a table somewhere in the back that has information about the celebration and sponsorship opportunities, or I also have my business card back there if you want to grab that. And thank you for inviting us, Ken and I, to present. And we hope that we'll be here 25 years from now and coming back. Not us personally, someone else. Oh, the first question. Yeah. Go ahead. Who's got?
My question is, I've noticed that over the last 2 to 3 years during the pandemic, that the activities there have lessened quite a bit, because we used to go regularly to activities there. So how have you been able to make it go over these last several years? And can you give us some overview of the reduction that appears to have happened in terms of people coming? Thank you.
Well, we were virtually shut down for a year, our whole industry. And so, like I was saying, our events were capped at 10 people in the entire building. So there were a lot of people that, postponed their events. We had a lot of events that moved to 2022 or 2021 even. And then we would be able to open for a short period of time and then get closed down again or be greatly restricted, the whole industry. It was extremely difficult. I joked that I spent the first year, and my staff as well, cutting our budget, continually cutting our budget. And we would, produce projections for the Room Tax Commission and end up thinking that they were, on target and look good. No. We had to go back and cut again. And it was just a nonstop cutting budgets. Destination Madison experienced the same thing, and Overture, everyone that gets money from the room tax. So while we were able to host some smaller events inside, and that was what I was saying, the rooftop was like the saver, because it gave us the opportunity to still host events and be safe. So we made it by cutting back significantly. We were also given the opportunity to, instead of laying off our staff, they kind of repurposed them to other departments that needed them, like the Parks Department. So that helped us a lot. And our staff was gone for like a year. Not all of it, but you know, the part that could. Others worked at home. And that's what I was saying. We spent our time you know, devising signage and policies to deal with COVID protocols, and also achieving the LEED certification and the it's called GBAC, cleaning protocols. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I won't hold it, promise. Okay. Thank you, Connie and Ken. Could you please go back to the beginning and talk about how the opening of Monona Terrace spurred more investment in the downtown, started the downtown renaissance, which kind of shows, takes us to where we are today with our healthy downtown, and especially with private investors wanting to invest in the downtown, like Mr. Jerry Frauci. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because George is going to be giving a presentation on that, correct? Coming, yeah, July 13th. So, but I
George, okay.
I promised I wouldn't steal any of his material.
Is Monona Terrace itself financially self-sustaining, or does it require subsidy?
Subsidy. We require room tax subsidy.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It brought back great memories. Sorry I talked. I apologize. How will Monona Terrace be involved, or the staff at Monona Terrace be involved in the committee and the work that's being done in the redevelopment of the shoreline and on Lake Monona?
Our board chair, Judy Krofsky, has been appointed, or we hope will be appointed to that committee. They're in the process of deciding who's going to be on that committee. So that'll be our initial input, and then past that, I'm sure we'll be involved. It just hasn't been determined yet how.
One of the nice things about Monona Terrace is how well sort of all the parking is hidden from view, like from the outside. It makes it look really nice, but it also makes it hard to tell how busy it is. Is there like a metric that allows you to compare one convention center to another to tell which ones are busy relative to each other? And if there is, how does Monona Terrace compare to other convention centers?
Boy, that'd be a question for Bill Zeineman there. Bill is our associate director.
You want to talk about the utilization study, Bill?
That's right. One metric is occupancy. The maximum practical occupancy for a convention center is 70%. Right? There's holidays, there's move-in days. Convention A doesn't leave on Wednesday, and Convention B starts on Wednesday. There's days in between. So that's the practical maximum occupancy. Depending on the room, some of our rooms are there, some of our rooms are not there. But we just completed an optimization study with Destination Madison and an outside consultant that is expert in these studies. We just completed an optimization study, and the results are, to put it very simply, we want larger events and more of them. And that's what Destination Madison is focusing on. And we want them to book farther out in the distance, that it gives hotels a chance to provide the guest rooms necessary for a convention, and then fill in with the corporate business and leisure transient business and other business that comes shorter term.
Somebody has to have a question for Ken.
Oh, okay. I can. So if Ken Opin, who was so involved in the referendum vote, wanted to take a tour of the building because he's an aficionado of Frank Lloyd Wright, how would Ken or anybody else who's a friend of Ken do something like that?
I believe Judy knows the answer to this question, since she is one of our tour guides. So we have a volunteer group of tour guides that give tours twice a week now, I believe, still, on Tuesday and Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, and Saturday. And you come to the gift shop, and, well, I think you have to now register online, and then you show up at the gift shop, and at 1 o'clock. And Judy and other people will give tours.
In reference to the gentleman's earlier question.
Use the mic, Ken.
I believe Monona Terrace is the only convention center that gives tours.
Can you request Judy as your tour guide?
I think you should.
I was wondering in your presentation why you didn't reference the referendum in as either 48 or 50. Both of my parents voted to build Monona Terrace. It didn't get done because of obstructionists, but it, you know, the city's voted twice to build the facility.
Yeah, I had 10 minutes.
Over here, could you speak to the proposal for an expansion of Monona Terrace? Or do we have to come in July to hear that?
Are you covering that? No, okay. While I would love that to happen, there are a number of projects that are in front of that. I think part of the Nolan Waterfront project is, you know, a series of pieces that have to happen before an expansion would be, you know, considered or, you know, looked into carefully. There has to be political will, as you know, there has to be funding, and the all the pieces have to fall in place. There are a number of you know, people that believe that that should happen. I think we would have a good case if we are fully optimized and fully utilizing our building at that 70% level. Then we could make a very strong case that we need an expansion. But again, you know, the Nolan Waterfront project's going to come before an expansion, and I hope we can get there, you know, in 5-10 years. But we'll see. Everything happens, you know, a long period of time later than in Madison. Let's just leave it at that. Are we done? Are we done?
The president had a question, but it either didn't pass the four-way Q&A, or George wanted to get, Ken wanted to give it to me one-on-one. So, so thank you again, Connie and Ken, for your presentation. And with that, Rotarians, we are adjourned.